This is episode 94 of The Variety Artist. This is John Abrams, your host, and that guy that interviews successful variety artists from around the world every single week. Well, I'm coming up on 100 five-star ratings. Make sure to add yours to the list. You can do it right now from your phone or wherever you're listening. And if you have a minute, write out a little review. It really helps the show a lot. I'll remind you again at the end of the show. Now, I named this episode How to Make It Bigger, Better, and More Exciting. I didn't think of that. It was something that was said in this interview. And to me, that's what these guys are all about. How can you take a performing routine and make it bigger, better, and more exciting? And then, how can you take that piece and make it bigger, better, and more exciting? And then, well, I think you get the idea. This seems to be their mantra. There's a reason these guys are one of the top, well, probably the top juggling duo in the world. Enjoy the interview.
Fun fact number 429. When John was a teenager, he streaked right in front of a cop car.
Welcome to The Variety Artist, providing aspiring artists and entertainers with in-depth discussions from top performers from all over the world. So get ready to book some gigs, make some money, and have some fun with your host, John Abrams.
You've seen them on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, America's Got Talent, Penn and Teller, Fool Us, and much more. An appearance at the White House, 5 Guinness World Records, 18 gold medals from the International Jugglers Association, and they've been inducted into the National Speakers Association's Speaker Hall of Fame. They're one of the most successful and sought-after comedy acts working today. Variety artists, I give you John Wee and Owen Morse, The Passing Zone.
Hey, glad to be here. How are you?
Hey, John, what an honor it is to be with you today.
I'm excited about having you guys on. Now, so my audience knows, because this is audio only, who is who?
I will be playing the part of John today.
All right.
And,
you hear?
and this will be the part of Owen.
Perfect. Now we can tell your voice is different. I think Owen's voice is a little deeper. I think that's how we can tell the difference.
That may be, but we're interchangeable, so we can answer each other's questions.
I'll talk extra high like this so you can really tell.
So how did you two meet?
We actually met at a juggling convention back in 1986 in San Jose, California. We'd each been juggling for a while, and we're attending this convention, and a mutual friend who knew both of us and knew that we were each into club passing, said, hey, you need to meet this guy, Owen, he's from California, a really nice guy, and he loves passing clubs. We got introduced and got along and juggled and passed clubs, and we immediately clicked. Our styles of juggling kind of matched, and our sense of humor, and we just kind of hit it off and got to be friends there.
How did you go from just juggling, like just passing clubs and doing the standard juggling stuff, to creating fully formed, gigantic routines?
Well, you learn pretty quickly that juggling by itself is not all that entertaining. I mean, people will watch it and enjoy it, but what you really want is something that gets their attention, and that often involves danger and excitement and big and ridiculous routines.
We also learned that as long as people are laughing, then they're enjoying what we're doing. So, in the beginning, we were really into the technical juggling side of things. I mean, we obviously knew that we needed to entertain people too, but we were working on, world record setting juggling, and we were the first duo to pass 11 clubs between 2 people and those kind of things. But yeah, really the difficulty of performing those kinds of tricks and the boredom of the audience just watching juggling. Yeah, we quickly realized, we need to come up with some crazy and entertaining and funny ways to present everything.
So what was the first thing that you guys created that you said, oh, this is more than juggling. This added some danger and added this and added that?
The way I remember it, sort of right away, one of the ideas that we had I think it was from watching some Chinese acrobat group where one guy was on a rolla bola, and then about like 4 other people were stacked up and balancing on top of him or something. We thought, well, that's interesting that you could balance on a rollerbola with someone on top of you. So that piece where I'm on Owen's shoulders and he's standing on a rollerbola was one of the first unusual, non-standard juggling tricks that we thought maybe we could learn this.
Yeah, and neither of us had any formal, acrobat training. So you're sort of making this stuff up as you go. And I can recall when we first teamed up, we lived together for a year, and being in the backyard and John climbing up on my shoulders and going, okay, and hanging onto the edge of the roof of the house.
The height was just right, so I could hold on to the edge of the roof just right in front of me, and then let go for a couple of seconds, and then hang on again.
Yeah.
All, of course, done over cement.
Of course.
Sure.
Yeah, probably the best way to learn dangerous acrobatics at a height.
Yeah.
So when you did that first gig and you were doing that stunt and there was no roof to hold on to, did it freak you out?
Oh, it's terrifying.
Oh, yeah. And we have a habit of putting things in the show before they're ready to go in the show.
Oh,
I mean, you can rehearse it. You rehearse it as much as you can, and you think, well, we're mostly getting it, but you get up in front of an audience and you're not in your rehearsal space, and you're nervous and there's a lot of pressure, and it's not the ideal situation.
Yeah, usually in that moment we're like, oh, we should have worked on this for another month.
Or another year.
Yeah. But yeah, that is one of the only ways to figure out whether something's working or even whether it's a good idea, is to get it up in front of an audience and try it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find that balance between you can do that too soon, or you can just wait too long. Somewhere in the middle.
yeah, that is the absolute truth. You can practice and practice and practice, but it never goes exactly like it did in your living room when you're up on stage.
And no matter how solid you do feel like you have it in practice, it's always a completely different story in front of an audience, for the first time especially.
You were doing the rollerbola thing, and you're just starting to flex your gymnastics muscles, I guess. And then you're starting to put together these big routines with, I'm seeing space suits and I'm seeing all sorts of crazy things. Tell me about that leap.
I can recall being inspired by Penn and Teller, and a number of years ago, they did this card trick with forklifts, and you just go, wow, what possibility, how can we make juggling that big? We had been juggling chainsaws for a while, and you think, well, what's the next step?
Yeah, and even that chainsaw piece, we approached very, very differently. For years, people would say, I mean, that's one of the hazards of being a juggler, is that people want to see chainsaws. So for several years, we sort of, people said, do you do chainsaws? Do you do chainsaws? And we'd say, no. And we just sort of resisted it, thinking, well, that's just somebody else's idea, and we don't want to copy that. But then finally we were realizing, well, if we want to be one of the best juggling acts out there, and people expect or want or think of chainsaws as the ultimate thing, then I guess we better do it. We then went about trying to figure out an idea of doing chainsaw juggling in a way that no one else was doing it. And really the sort of standard thing is just sort of the macho, hey, look, now I'm going to fire up these 3 chainsaws and juggle them, and it's going to be loud and big and scary, and I'm going to be, strong and menacing and exciting. I'm not sure how the idea really came about, but we thought, how about if we juxtapose the loudness and scariness and macho thing of chainsaw juggling, and combine that with ballet and dance and choreography and tights. And so that just sort of immediately seemed like, yes, that's a way to do it, where we're not stealing from anybody else. We're not doing anyone else's idea, and we're making it our own.
And we're making something that's dangerous. So it kind of takes the edge off a little bit, or it's a nice combination of both, where, you get people in the audience watching our chainsaw ballet through their fingers because it's terrifying. Then they're also laughing. So you kind of go, that's a fun combination to come across.
Oh, yeah.
But then, so the astronaut people juggling is what we call it. That piece came about after the chainsaws, as Owen was saying, when you say, well, how do you top chainsaws? What do you do after that? What's bigger, better, more exciting? So we had the idea of, what if we could juggle 3 people from the audience? So that was just the first thought. Yeah, then it took a long time of brainstorming and figuring out methods or what might happen. I mean, we would just sit down day after day going, what's going to be a way that we can juggle people? And we thought about rollers, and we thought about ramps and bungee cords and all kinds of crazy stuff.
And you came up with what you see today.
Yeah,
exactly.
And
yeah,
it's hilarious. It's fun. And all I could think about when I was watching that, I was watching Howie, and Howie's up there going crazy. And I was thinking, if I was in one of those suits, I think I would probably get sick to my stomach.
It is true.
That is true. We had to rehearse this with friends. The routine as it is now is about half as long as it was initially, just because of the motion and the illness that could be induced.
Yeah, usually people get done with that trick, and it's just short enough where they're starting to feel pretty dizzy, but yet not too terribly. People are always a little unsteady on their feet as soon as we're done with that one.
I'm sure.
But for the most part, you don't want to do it 2 or 3 times in a row. Yeah, when we were first learning it and had our friends recruited to do it, and we had to do it over and over again, they told us pretty quickly, no, this is not fun to do more than once.
We gave them saltines and 7-Up and had them sit down for a while.
Yeah, let us know when you're ready. We're going again.
We're ready to go again when you are.
My kids used to do that to me. We go to Magic Mountain, or you guys are from Southern California, both of you, so Magic Mountain, Knott's Berry Farm,
for sure.
Disneyland, and they go on some scary, crazy roller coaster, and right after, if there's no big line, they'd be like, Dad, let's go on that again. Again and again.
I need a minute.
Yeah. Give me a second.
Even the idea behind this one sort of was inspired by somebody else. We had this idea of hanging 3 people on 3 different cables from one point and sort of doing basically kind of what we're doing. But we just thought, well, it's not going to seem like juggling. We're not really throwing, and we're not really catching, and people aren't really flying through the air. And is that going to be good? And we thought, probably not. And then we watched a German performer do a piece where he was juggling 3. They're sort of like vertically hung chime sort of metal tubes that were hanging on 3 different wires, and he would swing them around and do all these cool patterns with it. And it was beautiful and really just this great piece. And we were watching it going, well, that's the idea we had with people. Yeah. And now watching him do it with this, it really does look like juggling. And it really is kind of a neat idea. So we approached him after seeing him perform and said, all right, we had this idea to do this with people. And after watching you do your version of that sort of thing, it looks great. And would you mind if we developed our routine sort of using that idea? And he said, no, it sounds completely different from what I'm doing, and knock yourself out. And so we went ahead and started working on it after that. And fortunately it plays pretty well. It
plays great. Has that been the big topper, or is there something bigger than that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, we're always looking for the next big thing. It was after that we developed this knife throwing piece. And again, rather than simply just getting a volunteer and from the audience or have somebody stand up against a board, we thought, well, how can we make this more interesting? And then we developed this pendulum piece where John is suspended upside down and juggles 3 balls through the path of the knives that I'm throwing towards this board. You may have seen that also on America's Got Talent.
Yes.
We asked a volunteer, in this case it was Mel B, to join John on the swinging pendulum. I'm blindfolded throwing knives towards the target. So it's up to John to tell me when to throw the knife to save his own life. And then it was up to Mel B to guide my throws after each throw, tell me higher, lower, to the left, to the right. And in that case, we wanted to make it a little bit more exciting and ridiculous. And so we had a target, and this target was connected to a dunk tank where Howie Mandel was sitting on the edge of the seat of this dunk tank. So
the dunk tank was not originally part of the routine at all. And then when we were doing America's Got Talent, that was one of the interesting experiences about that whole thing. It all unfolded rather organically. This was not a plan from the start at all. And when we did our first appearance, we did the thing with Howie where we jumped over him.
Yeah.
The next thing we wanted to do was knife throwing with Heidi Klum or Mel B. And so at the end of that trick, Simon said, okay, we loved it. We'll have you back, but you have to promise you'll use Howie every time. And so there we stood, and we sort of had no choice but to say, okay, we'll do that. And in the back of our minds, we're thinking, oh, shoot, that's not what we want to do at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Afterwards, we just thought, well, we just promised that we would use Howie. We still want to do knife throwing. How can we involve him? And so that's sort of what inspired the whole dunk tank addition to that whole piece. And it turned out just to be a great, great ending to it. It was a big pain in the butt to make that work. And we had to buy a dunk tank and experiment with building it and transporting it and doing all of that. So
Wow.
Now might be a reasonable time to mention that we have a dunk tank for sale.
yeah, if anyone wants one.
It turns out they're not so easy to travel.
Are you taking that entire routine and now doing it elsewhere? Are people asking for that now?
The nice thing is we were able to modify that. So now rather than a dunk tank, we've got the target connected to a pie in the face launcher.
Ah.
It's a much lighter, easier to travel with spring-loaded pie in the face thing. So it basically has a sort of fun ending result like the dunk tank, but it's not quite as intrusive, and it travels a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great ending for the piece. I guess either one would be a great ending for the piece. Have you ever forgotten a giant prop? You get there and you say, oh, I have everything except for the one cable for the one person.
Not so much where we've forgotten or left behind something, but we've certainly had a handful of performances where our equipment has not shown up. The airlines loses our luggage or something, and there we are with very little time to prepare for a show, and we've got nothing.
And that's one thing that's amazing about the juggling community in general is they're so supportive. So you show up at any city, you put out on Facebook, hey, we're in a bad situation here. Our stuff isn't going to make it. Who's close by? Jugglers tend to rally, and it's amazing. People come out of the woodwork, whether they're professional or amateur jugglers, are saying, okay, well, I'm 2.5 hours away. I can get in my car right now and bring you torches and sickles and a unicycle if that'll help.
The last time it happened, we were in Miami, and it wasn't until about midnight that we knew that we were not going to get most of our props.
Oh.
And so here we are at like 12 or 1 in the morning, and we've got a show at 8 a.m. We sit out on Facebook and say, help, who knows anybody in the Miami area? Here's my phone number. Next thing you know, you see a few messages bouncing back and forth, and my phone rings. And there's a guy who says, yeah, I live about an hour from there. What do you need? And I'll be there first thing in the morning. And so sure enough, this guy shows up with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I've heard this story a number of times with a number of people I've had on. I think it was Frank Olivier one time needed a unicycle, and someone came and brought him a unicycle because I don't know what happened. It got lost in his luggage.
Yeah.
Yep.
Barry Friedman one time. Yeah. An entire crate, I think, didn't show up. So he and his buddy, Dan Holtzman, they go to a Walmart and they start grabbing different things that they can juggle and create routines with. And in fact, I think if you listen back to that one, they actually created a routine that they used over and over again from that Walmart.
Yeah. You can find a lot of good stuff at a Walmart. I guess the thing is, we've all been in that position, and it's horrible. So if you see somebody else in that position, I guess everybody is pretty apt to be willing to help if you can.
Oh yeah.
Especially even that night, we had another guy call from Orlando, which is like a 3 or 4 hour drive from Miami or something. And he said, well, if you need me, I'll throw my stuff in my van. I'll drive all night and I'll be there.
That's great. Well, tell us about the Penn and Teller Fool Us experience.
Yeah, that was really fun. Just last year, I guess we were on just a few months ago.
Yeah.
Those guys, as Owen mentioned, we've just been such fans for so many years, and well, they set a very high bar for what we're trying to accomplish with juggling, and basically to be a variety duo performing this art, but also be known as a duo and perform around the idea of comedy and all of that. We've just been watching them for years and have been fortunate to become friends with them over the years. To be on their show was really such a thrill. Although we had to keep it secret. They didn't know that we were going to be on the show, and they can't know any of the performers, any of the magicians who are going to be on are kept completely secret until those performers walk out on stage.
Oh, so when you walked out on stage, they were like, "Oh, look, it's John and Owen. Oh my goodness."
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. You can hear them say, "The boys." Yeah, there you are. And they know we're not magicians. We were working with their production staff and hiding from them and not being able to mention that we're in Las Vegas. Normally we would and say, "Hey, let's hang out." So we're being sequestered in the hotel, but it was fun. We took a routine that's been in our show for years now, this leapfrog routine, where John jumps over me and over a volunteer on the ground, and added a magic element to it. So that was a whole process, one that we spent many, many months and a lot of hard work figuring out.
Yeah, and we called in all of our magician friends, got together at our warehouse space with them, and also made a lot of phone calls to friends to try to figure out methods and what might work, and came up with this fun idea of having the card fountain shoot all the cards into the air as I leap through them, and then having the card end up snapped on the rat trap and have that be the card that the person chose. And it was really a fun, exciting thing. We basically knew, given the methods that we sort of landed on and had to work for this, we were pretty sure that Penn and Teller were going to know what the methods were. We did have one little idea of a part of it that we thought might fool them, and it ended up not quite playing and not fooling them anyway. From the beginning, our goal was not so much to fool them, but just to get on the show. The show is such a great showcase for performers. Penn and Teller treat all of the magicians and contestants, or whatever you want to call them, with such great respect, and they really want everybody's performance to look good. And so we've been watching the show for years thinking, wow, we would love to get on that show. Yeah, so finally we developed this magic version of our trick, and now we've kept the magic part in it in all of our performances, and it's really a fun new addition to the show.
Now, you mentioned that you were interested in talking about juggling as compared to magic and how it's presented and all.
Yeah, it is just a fascinating, we've got so many friends that are magicians. We work with magicians all the time, and in people's minds, magic and juggling kind of get lumped together a lot.
Yeah.
But it is really fascinating, and was even more so now with the whole Fool Us experience. We got a little deeper into the world of magic. It is just such a different art form. Even though people see them a little bit similarly, they could not be more different.
Truly.
The fact that jugglers sort of set out to try to show you something that they can do with skill that they've worked hard on and have learned. And basically all of the skill that a magician has learned is something that they're trying to hide from the audience.
Right.
This different mentality of hiding something versus showing something is just night and day as far as how to approach it.
When you present juggling, people are impressed, but they're not astonished. You get a response from a magic trick that it just doesn't make sense, or you're completely fooled, or the mystery of it. There's nothing mysterious about juggling at all, really.
It's like, I practiced a long time to learn how to do this.
Yeah, and I think in general, I know there are many magicians out there, especially those who do card magic and sleight of hand and everything, where the practice is very similar. to what jugglers do. So I don't mean in any way to diss magic in general. But overall, I think the amount of practice that's necessary to learn a really cool magic trick is maybe less than the amount of time it takes to learn a really cool juggling trick or to develop a new routine. You can go into a magic shop and buy something and practice it a handful of times and then astound anybody with it fairly quickly. But something that's a whole new juggling thing, it can take you years to develop this thing. And then people watch it and go, that's nice. But the magic trick out of the box that you perform,
Right.
people are like, oh my gosh, that blows my mind. I don't get it. Tell me how you did that. I need to figure it out. That's so amazing. You're a witch. They're just so much more emotionally caught up in the sort of challenge of figuring something out. And the fact that with juggling, there isn't anything to figure out. You just watch it and you go, hey, that was good.
Yeah.
And it's really, it drives us a little crazy.
Yeah.
As a magician,
Yeah.
it's funny when we do card magic, we'll do something really hard and really, knuckle busting, they call it. Other magicians will say, wow, that was amazing how he did this and he moved that card over there and he did that. Whereas a general lay audience will look like exactly what you said. We're trying to hide those moves from them. So that card just magically somehow appeared where it was supposed to appear.
Yeah, and they don't see all the work that goes into that. It is just fascinating. Plus just the whole world of magic and juggling is so different. That's one of those two where I know that a lot of magicians kind of laugh and say, yeah, magicians, we don't get much respect. I mean, as jugglers, we're not buying it.
Oh, goodness. Don't you talk to us. We don't regularly perform at the juggling castle.
And there never will be one. And how many juggling specials have you seen on TV?
Right.
And in fact, try this. Now you probably can,
Yeah,
John,
I can.
but
Yeah.
and many of your listeners can too. But approach a normal person on the street and say, name a famous juggler.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Right. And they will stare at you and have nothing to say.
But most people can name, 6 or 10 or at least several famous magicians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There has never been a famous juggler.
No, there really hasn't been ever.
And so we set out to become that. It hasn't worked. It's
Yeah.
it's not possible.
We had a magician approach us once at Magic Live, and he said, "Oh my gosh, you're the passing zone. Well, you're like the David Copperfield of juggling."
Yeah.
And we just thought, that is so sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible that we have made it to the ranks of a premier comedy juggling act, but that nobody knows who we are, and we're not making $50 million a year or whatever.
Yeah, Copperfield's a huge celebrity and makes millions of dollars.
Copperfield owns an island.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, no, we don't own any islands. I've been to an island.
It's not quite the same.
That's something.
No, I've seen an island, so there's that.
I've watched Gilligan's Island. Does that count?
Right.
I guess
Yeah,
what we're
that's as
saying is
close as
our
I'm gonna
career is an island, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That's true. I think AGT is changing that a little bit. I wonder if when somebody sees your act, although there's juggling in it, they're thinking to themselves, these guys just have an amazing act. They don't necessarily put 2 and 2 together if you're not specifically juggling the things they're used to seeing, juggling balls or clubs or whatever they're used to seeing.
Well, and we try as much as we can in our promo and everything just not to use the word juggling. We call it the J word. We just try not to say that word very often. And even when agents, our agent who books us usually just calls us a comedy act, a variety act,
Right.
That sort of thing. But it is always sort of strange because as soon as you really throw and catch one thing, you're a juggler. And it is pretty hard. You hear all these people, where you go, you should see these guys. They do variety, they do entertainment, it's comedy, it's this and that. Watch the video. And then they watch the video and they're like, well, why didn't you say it's a juggling act?
Oh.
Clearly these guys juggle. right? And it's like, yeah, we tried to leave that out of it, but
Yeah.
Well, I was looking at my intro, and even in my intro, I think juggling's mentioned once, and it's the
Good.
International Jugglers Association.
yeah, good job.
Right. Yeah.
You did it
Yeah.
right.
You can't hear this, but I'm patting myself on the back right now. Yeah.
No, and that's the
good.
sad thing too. I mean, we sort of are self-deprecating about it, but I mean, we love juggling. We love jugglers.
Well, we identify as jugglers, and we have for years, and we're passionate about the art form. It's just the preconception of what's in people's minds of what a juggler is and what they do that doesn't match up with what we're bringing to our stage performance.
Yeah,
Mhm.
our entire career is that uphill battle of trying to say, okay, it's juggling, but it's not what you're thinking.
Right.
You know, probably the biggest, most frequent comment we get from people afterwards, it just happened again just the other night. People just say, okay, I got to admit, when I heard it was going to be a juggling act, I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be lame. And then they said, this is great. We loved it. It's the best entertainment we've ever had.
Yeah.
And so after the fact, they love it. But the idea of it ahead of time is never something appealing. Where I think in general, people do get excited about, oh, a magician, that's going to be cool. But nobody really thinks, oh, a juggler, that's going to be cool. You think, eh.
I wonder if juggling is where magic was 20 or 25 years ago, because I think 20 or 25 years ago, when you thought of a magician, you'd think of the guy in the tuxedo and, you know, sawing a girl in half and that type of thing. But then, you know, when David Blaine came up and Chris Angel and AGT, of course, and Penn and Teller, all of those things pushed magic further in the general public's mind.
Yeah, I think it definitely did.
I wonder if at some point in time that's going to happen with juggling too. 20 years from now, you're going to look back and say, oh, well, these TV shows or these things really catapulted juggling into the mind's eye of the general public.
I hope you're right about that. That would be an amazing thing. I mean, we've often talked about the idea of if we could host a show or something, or create a juggling special and bring some of the just greatest, coolest, most, you know, artistic and entertaining and great skilled juggling acts to a television show, I think it would be really good. But even though it would be good, I don't know if anybody would watch it.
Right. There's something about a live magic show. People will buy tickets to go see magic because they go, I want to see a woman sawed in half.
Yeah.
There won't be any television camera tricks if I'm there in person, where a juggling act doesn't command that sort of attention. So I don't know. I would love to see juggling have a huge increase in interest and popularity, but my goodness, you know, we're 31 years into this thing and I don't see it happening.
We're now here just talking up magic more than juggling. We better change gears and
Wait a minute, let's
start talking about how awesome juggling is.
Yeah.
Juggling is awesome, by the way.
Back to that. Yeah.
I've had some people on this show that have just been amazing. One of the things that I do for a living is I watch amazing entertainers.
Yeah.
So I've had the privilege of watching the checkerboard guy, David Aiken, who I think you guys know.
Yep. Yeah. Great guy. Great actor.
He's wonderful.
Yeah. Frank Olivier, who we brought up a little earlier.
Yep.
You guys. I mean, also Peter Irish. Mm-hmm. Just amazing, amazing people. And to me, it's a fascinating art. And it's really fun to watch if it's presented properly, just like magic, I suppose.
And juggling really is growing in the last 5-10 years, last 2 years, whatever, through YouTube and the internet, and the young up and coming jugglers doing such amazing things. It really has taken some huge leaps forward. I do think there will be more and more interesting stuff happening in coming years in the world of juggling, but there's some really, really good stuff out there. We're thrilled to be doing this for a living, and we focus now more on the comedy aspect. We always want to keep the juggling still difficult and interesting and good, but we are no longer on the cutting edge of the technical end of juggling. The things going on these days are just amazing.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about some personal things that you guys do. I read on your website that one of you does each of these things, I imagine, or maybe both. I don't know. You tell me. You're hang gliding, surfing, mountain biking, and motorcycling. Now, who's who? Who does what?
I'll take the hang gliding and the mountain biking.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess the surfing and the motorcycling are mine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've got a few side hobbies that are that keep us busy when we're not juggling and traveling and performing.
Have you had any harrowing experiences doing those other things other than juggling?
Yeah, certainly you would think that hang gliding would have some, harrowing stories, but it really is a sport that has matured over the years. If you were hang gliding in the 70s and lived to tell about it, you're doing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Now it has matured into a relatively safe activity as long as you're avoiding thunderstorms and weather events. And the ground. That's the other thing.
That's one of those things that kind of gets in the way occasionally.
Yeah, it's a little harder than you'd want it to be sometimes.
The hang gliding is the easy part. It's the landing that's tough.
It's the taking off and landing that you got to pay attention.
Yeah, which makes like the motorcycling and the mountain biking even more dangerous because you're pretty much always very close to the ground, and it's the ground that gets you.
Yeah, it wins every time.
Yeah, it kind of does, huh? Now surfing, You're in the middle of the water, so although I've had harrowing situations myself surfing.
When a big wave hits you, it is kind of like hitting the pavement. It's there's a lot of force there. It's funny doing juggling as a career. It is so important that we not get injured.
I would think so.
Almost every time I go out surfing, even just something minor, whether it's getting hit in the head with the board or whether it's coming in with a sore shoulder or getting thrown around and suddenly having a sore back or whatever. I do it less often than I used to just because I'm partly just nervous about getting hurt.
Yeah, because you have a show tonight and the show must go on. You got to do the show.
Yeah, so there are those days where I want to grab the board and go out and I just think, I can't risk it today. So there aren't many days that I can risk it, but I
can't let one of those minor things like, the board hitting your head.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Something minor like that.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit here and do fact or something John just made up. Sound like fun?
Oh, let's do it.
Is it fact? Or is it something John just made up?
Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to say a headline, and one of you or both of you is going to tell me whether it's true or not. And if it is true, tell me a little more about it.
Okay. All right.
Got it.
Here we go. First headline. Both John and Owen once shared a taxi cab with porn star Ron Jeremy.
True.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep. There you go.
Wait, I have one question. Who recognized him and why?
Well, I'm not going to get into those details. Let's just say we were at a party at Penn Gillette's house.
Mm-hmm.
We were told from someone else who this person was. That's how we ended up sharing a cab to the airport with Ron Jeremy from a Penn Gillette party in Las Vegas.
Wait, you got to tell me about that conversation. Was there any conversation about him?
No, I think we were just talking about normal things and how much fun the party was. And I think the main focus of the party was a performance by Naked Elvis.
Oh,
who is, yes, the fat Elvis version who then strips and gets naked and urinates on people.
Yeah, so there's that.
There was a lot to talk about.
Anytime you're at a party with Ron Jeremy, a naked Elvis, and a chimp, your life is taking an interesting turn.
I'll just let the audience just ruminate about that for a little while. Picture that in their head for a bit.
Right.
Yeah, we had more interesting things to talk about than pornography.
Yeah. A chimp and naked Elvis. It's the first time I've heard the naked Elvis story. And I got to picture this guy in his living room going, I have a really good idea for an act.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of people do Elvis. Let's see. How could I do it differently?
How could I do it in my way?
He's doing the exact same thing we're doing.
Right.
Yeah. How can I make it bigger and better?
Yep.
Right.
We're all in the same business, aren't we?
All right. Next headline. Ironically, in a completely different state, John and Owen hailed another taxi, and there was Ron Jeremy again.
I'm gonna have to say, yeah, that didn't happen.
I don't think that happened.
No,
That would be amazing, huh?
It would be very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, next headline. Owen set a North American distance record for the longest out and back flight on a hang glider.
That seems unlikely, but it's true.
Oh.
Yeah, July 4th, just a few months back. Yeah, I was actually attempting a world record, and I came up short by just 7 miles, but I did fly 232 miles that day.
Wow.
So 10 hours in the air. Actually, it's kind of fun. I attempted this in the Owens Valley. So that's here in California.
Oh.
He did so well, they named the valley after him.
That's
It's amazing.
That part is not true.
How do they measure the miles?
It's all with the GPS, and it's point to point. So we're flying and circling in thermals. You don't get credit for the circles you're making, straight line distances. I may try again next summer. You try to do it on the longest day of the year. So June 21st, 2020, I may give it another try.
Do you think you're going to try it in the same area?
Yeah. It's a spot specifically just conducive to long hang glider flight. It's an amazing place. Big thermals. You're climbing to nearly 18,000 feet, and it gets cold up there. You fly with oxygen and a winter coat, and the ability to unzip.
To do your best Elvis impersonation.
Exactly right. Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. As you can tell, Owen not only just hang glides as a hobby, but he's reached quite the elite level of doing it.
It's a beautiful sport. I enjoy it quite a bit.
Do you ever have those same thoughts as John does about surfing? Gee, I'm not sure if I want to hang glide today because we have a show tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, I've gotten into the habit of not flying the day before we leave for a show. Just, if you have a band landing and twist an ankle or something, even a sprained finger or something could cause a show to be difficult to do. So
plus crashing to your death, you'd much rather die a week before the show than the day before.
Yeah, there's no notice and everything, and
right.
It would,
exactly.
A juggling duo is tougher to do with one person usually.
Right.
It really is. Yeah.
My final headline: John once accidentally caught his pants on fire on television.
That is also true.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, Owen, were you there?
Oh, I had a front row seat. I was there. In fact, he was standing on my shoulders or about to be or something.
Yeah, this was actually again on Penn and Teller's back when they had the show Sin City Spectacular.
Uh-huh.
And we did a thing in a production number where we ran out it was sort of a Hawaiian theme. And so we had these sort of fringed bottom pants, just below the knee kind of length. And we were juggling torches, and I was then going to jump up on Owen's shoulders, and then we passed torches with Penn. And Penn's a really good juggler. We were going to pass 9 torches between me up on Owen's shoulders and Owen on the ground and Penn in front of us. Uh-huh. And so leading up to that, we're juggling and throwing these torches under our legs. And I hadn't really realized it, but in the under the leg throws, a torch got too close to the bottom of my pants and started the pants on fire.
Liar.
And at first I didn't know it.
Wait, listen to Owen laughing.
It wasn't me.
So then I run around and I'm about to get on Owen's shoulders, and suddenly I feel something really hot, right on my calf. And I quickly, look down, and my pants are on fire. And I slap at it really quickly with my hand and put the fire out on my leg, and then climb up on Owen's shoulders. Had I not noticed it until later, those pants would have been right next to his hair. And it could have really turned into an exciting juggling stuff.
I love that part where you light your pants on fire and then his head bursts into flames.
Right. Classic.
But yeah, it was funny to watch the video later. It didn't get big enough where the audience really would have noticed it. But if you know what you're looking for, you see me running across the stage and there's a little bright something down by my calf. And then you see me swatting at it and quickly putting it out before I get on his
And truthfully,
shoulders.
yeah, I didn't know until afterwards. He goes, oh, by the way, I caught myself on fire. And yeah, you see it on TV.
That was fact. Or something John just made up.
I have a couple of fan questions for you. You guys want some fan questions?
Oh, I'm ready.
Oh, we sure do. Now, are these our fans or your fans?
I think they're both of our fans, actually. In fact, every time I interview somebody new, I put on my Facebook that you can ask me questions about our guests, and I'll do my best to ask you guys. So here we go. Rob Balchunas, a.k.a. Rob the Balloon Guy, asks, how often do you practice together? Do you still practice together?
Oh, we do all the time. We have a really cool warehouse space, right? Sort of middle distance between our homes. We get together 4 or 5 times a week and practice for 3 hours or so.
If we're not traveling, we pretty much are there almost every day practicing. It's interesting, you know, if we don't practice for a while, we definitely start to notice a difference and the shows get harder to do. And so part of it is just practicing to keep our skills up. And then part of it is we've always got something new that we're working on that requires constant attention and work to keep moving it forward and trying to get it into the show. So
Yeah, it seems like if there's a new routine or something, you're practicing that and trying to take care of that, right?
yeah, and then there's sometimes where we've got a specific deadline and we're trying to get something up and ready by a certain time. And then we're really focused in performing or practicing a lot every day. Other times it's more of just a general, you know, let's keep practicing and keep juggling so that we don't lose it. Again, the fact that we've loved juggling for all these years, even if we're not getting together, there are times where each of us individually will just go to the clubhouse, we call it, to our warehouse space and just practice even on our own, even if the other can't make it.
All right. Rob also asks, now I don't know if this is a private joke or not. How come you can't get booked in Mississippi? Is there a story that goes along with that?
Well, Rob's been paying attention. Yeah, after 31 years, we performed just last week, we performed in our 49th state.
So that was Wyoming. Now one more to go.
Yeah.
And what state would that be?
It is the one state that refuses to have us. I don't know what their problem is with us, but yeah, those folks in Mississippi.
They just haven't called you. Have you attempted to perform there? They just haven't called you, or what?
We haven't specifically tried to perform. You know, we of course would perform everywhere. You know, but for some reason, nothing has ever confirmed and happened in the state of Mississippi. We've been there and we've driven through it, but we've never performed in Mississippi. For all of you out there listening in the Mississippi area, or someone who knows someone there, it's time. We might even offer a pretty decent price to get that 50th state.
Obadiah Thomas of Razzle Bazzle Boom asks, you kind of touched on this before. Can you walk us through creating a new routine?
There isn't really a specific method. Usually we look at something like a juggling skill that we have that isn't in the show. And we think, all right, is there some premise, some idea, some story behind this prop or this thing that can lend itself to some good comedy? We just sort of brainstorm a lot of ideas from there. And then once we feel like we have a sort of a version of a trick that will be effective just on its own merits, then we start to write the jokes and write the setups and just try to figure that out. We do have a semi-regular group in LA, sort of a comedy writing roundtable group with some other jugglers and magicians and people. Sometimes we'll get together with a gang of friends and sort of present a half-baked idea and say, all right, can we get some ideas for some of these? So some jokes and some ideas happen that way. You know, a lot of times it may happen the opposite, where we have an idea of some thought or premise and we think, okay, now what juggling skill can we connect to this. It happens differently every time, I think.
That's a great idea, having a brain trust
Yeah.
of a lot of high-level magicians, jugglers, and that type of thing. That's something I guess we can all do on our own particular level, right?
Exactly. Well, and the other thing that's interesting is, even, performing for friends, you're still sort of in a vacuum, and you need to get that routine out on stage, and the audience is going to tell you whether it's good or bad, or you often don't know where the laughs are going to be, or the different beats that work or don't work. Honing these new routines on stage is a huge part of it. Trying to get yourself into a situation where you can perform that same routine over and over on a daily basis, or even multiple times a day, is a great way to fill out and complete some of these new routines that you're trying to get on stage.
All right, Matt Baker. Do you guys know Matt Baker?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Matt.
Matt Baker, who has the Matt Baker Comedy and Stunt Show and has a terrific interview on the Variety Artist, episode 90, plug, asks, as one of the lone surviving juggling duos, what is your secret to success?
And one thing we learned very early on is to definitely get 2 hotel rooms. Back in the early days, we shared hotel rooms, especially when we were paying for them ourselves.
Yeah.
But someone gave us the advice of saying, if you want to stick together a long time, you need your separate space. So we started doing that pretty early on, and I think that helped a lot because we spend a lot of time together.
So what I'm hearing is the way to stick together is to be apart.
That helps. Choose your moments. I think we complement each other. We both have different skill sets, and I think what we bring to the stage together, we both realize is much better than what we would have if we were solo.
All right, those are all the fan questions I have. Tell me about your show and tell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have it's sort of what you'd call sort of a newsletter or a vlog or something where about once a month we send out a thing we call show and tell. And it's a combination of a short, amusing video involving probably some juggling or something that we're doing. That's a quick video. And that's the show part. And then the tell is we offer up a little bit of life advice about what you just watched on the video. It's humor. It's a way that we can get our sense of humor and some skills and some goofy stuff out there, but also really offer people some interesting things to think about or some lessons that we've learned from a long career of doing this. I don't know if it's exactly life-changing. I guess it can be, right, Owen?
It can be life-changing for sure.
So if you pay close attention, you follow the instructions.
It is life-changing. We'll leave it at that. Well, it is life-changing.
There you go.
So if you're interested in following us and if you like our humor and what we're doing, sign up for our show and tell on our website, and you'll hear from us about once a month, maybe a little less.
Do you have some advice for the beginner or the pro?
I think for variety acts, it's really important to have a video that really represents you, and however much money you can spend or need to spend to make that happen, it's worth it.
Yeah, the video really is for anybody, is the key to getting booked. If you have a bad video or no video, or your video just has poor sound or poor quality or whatever, it's just not going to work. And you need to spend as much money as it takes and get it shot properly, get it edited properly, put as many resources into that as possible, because it will come back to you. All the money that you've spent on a video will come back.
Right. Well, that's one of the beautiful things about AGT or Fool Us or being on any one of those shows, because they're shot by pros. It's a beautiful package.
Yeah. And that's certainly been a wonderful thing for us to have some really good television footage. And even anybody else, if you can get on a local news show, if somebody's asked you to perform, but they don't have a budget or something, and you can even trade the video shoot for your time, or say, okay, I'll do this event if you're recording it, and I can get a copy of 2 camera angles, and I can use the footage for my video.
All right. How about a recommended book? And I'll let you guys out of here.
Let's see. One of my favorites was Steve Martin's Born Standing Up. I think that's just
one of my faves.
Something about it. It's so good. And to hear his story, I'm born and raised in Orange County. There's a lot of parallels. He worked at Knott's Berry Farm in Disneyland, and I've done that. And it just listening to those stories and his career and how it took off. And I'm a huge Steve Martin fan. So that was just love it.
How about you, John?
This is not a performer kind of book, but one of my favorite books, does apply to working as well, is Undaunted Courage by Stephen Ambrose. It's basically the story of the Lewis and Clark expedition, and it basically walks you through each day, each moment of that entire thing. I love that book so much, and one of the things that I've found has been really helpful is I was reading the book while sitting on an airplane, and with all of the travel that we do and all of the sort of ability to whine about travel and to grumble about how difficult it is, when you read something like the Lewis and Clark expedition and what it took to get up a river and down a river and in those times, and the illness and the obstacles and everything, suddenly sitting on an airplane, having a flight attendant come up the aisle asking if you want a beverage, you've got headphones, you've got a movie, you've got meals served to you, and you're sitting in a nice cushy chair. Suddenly the idea of traveling just doesn't seem so bad anymore. So I recommend Undaunted Courage for a good read and good perspective on life on the road.
Excellent. I'm going to put both of those on my website so someone can just click on them and get them from Amazon real quick. No problem.
And we're writing a book too, so when that is out, then I recommend that book.
Yeah.
Oh, does that have a name yet?
It doesn't quite have a name. It might be called, the working title at the moment is Juggling Life.
Uh-huh.
It's a little bit of a book version of what we were talking about with Show and Tell. It's going to be a series of chapters about all kinds of crazy things that have happened to us in this long career. Some funny, some interesting, some, well, hopefully they're all interesting.
I hope so.
And then a bit of a life lesson that goes along with each of those stories. So it's a little bit of little biography, little funny stories, but also a little bit of a self-help business angle of it as well.
Great. As soon as that's done, as soon as that's published, make sure you shoot me out a message and I'll put that on the website too.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Will do.
All right. Thanks, guys, for doing my show. That was fun.
John, thank you. Thanks for having us. We had a blast.
Super appreciate it.
Do you both have some social media or anything else you'd like to promote?
Yeah, definitely find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We sort of do all those things. Facebook probably more than anything else. One of the nice things, if you follow us on Facebook, every holiday season, we do a holiday video. So our recent one that we just did for this last Christmas was pretty darn entertaining, I think.
Yeah.
So, look those up. But sign up so you get the next one.
On all of those different channels, is it The Passing Zone?
Right. And
yes.
Our website is passingzone.com.
Perfect. Thanks again, guys. That was awesome.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
And thanks to all my variety artists. If you found this podcast valuable or fun, which I know you did, or funny, spread the word. Say you got to listen to these guys. Make sure to rate and review the show from wherever you're listening to this. Now go out and book those gigs, make some money, and have some fun.
That's all for this episode of The Variety Artist, but your journey continues on our website. Go to thevarietyartist.com for more strategies, insight, and resources, as well as show notes on today's guest to assist you in your career. We'll see you on the next episode of The Variety Artist. But until then, go out and book those gigs, make some money, and have some fun.